Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with retired lawyer and published poet James W. Keenan. Jim Bill is not only a retired attorney at law, but still an endeavoring Irish poet from the hills of the wonderful West Virginia. He is continuing his fervent pursuit of his ardently sought artistic and cultural self-fulfillment. We caught up with him to discuss his career in law, aspirations as a writer, and so much in between. Enjoy this interview.
Great to meet you. Where are you located?
I'm located in Fayetteville, West Virginia, which is the site of the New River Gorge National Park and also the New River Gorge Bridge, from which they base jump on Bridge Day every year.
Okay. That sounds pretty exciting just by the name of it.
It's in South Central West Virginia, about 60 miles from the state capital of Charleston, West Virginia.
Okay. What's the motto for West Virginia?
Montana Semper Libera. Mountaineers are always free.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, good deal, man. It's great to meet you. I'm coming out of Kansas City, Missouri.
I've done legal work there.
Okay. All right. Have you ever spent any time here?
No, just overnight and to hear a case and fly back out.
Okay, cool. Well, I love your story, and I want to begin our conversation before we get into your life in law and being a writer by asking you, 4 years ago, we had no idea how long this pandemic was going to last, the ramifications. How did you ultimately get through that time period, and how did it change you?
Well, of course, I had COVID, but it wasn't that rough on me. I've had worse cases of flu, but it just absolutely destroyed some of the economic activity. My favorite restaurants closed, other businesses closed. It made it such that the employers were having difficulty finding help to work, and they still do even to this day. It had its usual economic adverse impacts, just like I guess everywhere else in the country. Me personally, I'd already started winding down my my law practice, but I got sick with not COVID, but with something else, and my law office was closed down. Now I retired, semi-retired last November 14th. So I'm not even taking cases as an attorney anymore. I've done over 4,000 divorces as a litigator, and I was also a trial court attorney and a part-time, and for a couple or 3 years I was a judge. But now I concentrate on writing my poetry.
So let's say this. Let me put you in front of a bunch of third grade students. It's career day. And one of the kids is curious about your life as a lawyer and your life now. If they were to ask you, hey, what do you do for a living? How do you answer that child?
I answer it by having my avocation of being a poet. I have 4 books published, and I'm getting ready to publish my 5th. I still am available to practice law, but because of my health and age, I'll soon have my 72nd birthday. Because of my health and my age, I've wound down my law practice. I practiced law for 45 years as a trial court attorney. I've done over 4,000 divorces. I've done abuse and neglect cases. I've just criminal defense of murders, of armed robberies, of just all kinds of jury trials. But now I've skinnied my life down, if you will, to the point where I just write poetry every day.
So, what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream? Was it always to get into law?
When I got into sixth grade was when I recognized my desire to be a lawyer. It's in the sixth grade, and I remember telling my elementary school teacher. She said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I want to be a lawyer." And she said, "You'll make a great one because you sure can't argue." So I knew as of the sixth grade what I wanted to do, and I I was graduated from high school. Oh, forgive me, sir.
Oh,
I
you're
was
good.
graduated from high school. Went to West Virginia Institute of Technology for a couple of years, and I went into the United States Marine Corps. Returned from the Marine Corps and finished undergraduate at West Virginia Tech. I took a job as the personnel and labor man at a coal mine in the Kanawha Valley. And from there, I was admitted to law school, and I attended law school at West Virginia University College of Law, and then returned home and started practicing law.
So, what were the seeds that were planted into you when you were a kid, you think, to get to a point where you love writing poetry now, but that you also pursued this career in law? And as you talked about, there were so many different flavors that you were involved with. How did those seeds get planted in you? How did this happen?
I was raised in a school teachers and a high school coach. I was raised in his family, and I was taught to stand up for myself. You know what part of the watchwords in my household was, you stand up for yourself. Don't be taken advantage of. And you know, John Adams, President John Adams had coined a philosophy, avow your opinions and defend them with boldness. So that's what I did. I took that upon myself, and as I was proceeding through junior high, then high school, I took part in clubs and social activities that involved advocating. And then when it came time to, after I'd gotten out of the Marines to enter law school, it just came naturally to me.
So, what was one of the early cases for you that made you grow the most, that made you maybe open your eyes up to what you were doing? Maybe you didn't realize until you had this case that it was a big eye opener for the world that you were entering.
I had a murder case early on in my career, and it was a case that my client had shot and killed her husband uh, outside their home. And it was a case, quite frankly, that extremely few people thought I could win. Uh, and I prepared for trial, and I researched the law, and I interviewed witnesses, and I planned and modeled my arguments, and researched everything to prepare, and I ended up winning the case. And the case had its humor in that the woman who killed her husband was an attractive nurse, and her husband had been an abuser, and she tired of it, and they had a standoff, and she had warned him off, and he came after her, so she shot him and killed him. And when we got to the trial, The jury was composed of 12 men. There weren't any women on the jury of 12. It's called a petit jury. And it was not by design, it just turned out that way. And they acquitted her in very short time. Didn't take them, but I think it was only 28 minutes to acquit her. But later, two or three of them had told the circuit clerk that the reason that we prevailed, the defense prevailed, was because of how thorough I had been with the questioning and with my arguments on objections to evidence, so on and so forth. And it taught me that the secret, one of the secrets to successful litigation, to successful representation, is indeed preparation. There are times that attorneys will make mistakes and think that a particular case is not warranted of their usual effort of preparation. And as I've grown older and had other younger lawyers come to me for counsel, for advice, for mentoring, if you will, I've told them all, the secret is preparation. You've got to be prepared for your own witnesses. You've got to be prepared to cross-examine. You've got to try to anticipate the arguments and the positions that the opposition is going to take, and then you've got to prepare for it. And unless you do, you're going to come up short. And let me give you an example. Many people will watch these legal shows on television about lawyers and lawyering and whatnot. There are some protocols that are wisely followed by experienced litigators, and one of them is do not cross-examine. Do not cross-examine unless you know the questions you're going to ask, and you know the answers that are going to come from that cross-examination. And if those answers are not forthcoming, you can prove that the other side is lying. So that's part of it's not a trick. It's just a healthy trial tactic, is notwithstanding what you see on television, minimize to a great degree, because you get in trouble. And the worst question you can ever ask on cross-examination, do you know what it is?
What's that?
Why?
Yeah.
Why? And do you know why that's ill-advised? Because it gives the person another chance to tell their story.
Yeah.
Because the answer to why is because. And then yak.
Yeah.
So it's wise to limit cross-examination. And when you get in cross-examination, don't ask a question that you don't correctly know the answer that should be forthcoming. And you don't ask why, because it gives them another chance to explain away.
Yeah. I totally get it, for sure. So I'm curious, in your life, you've obviously had to deal with a lot of high-powered situations, and you're obviously very motivated. Who's been a hero for you? Who's been an inspiration in your life?
Well, my first of all inspiration was John F. Kennedy. I met Kennedy as a child of about 5 or 6. And when he was assassinated, I was in the 6th grade, and I cried for 3 days. He was my hero. And in one of my books of poetry, I explain that sometimes people will ask you, if you could ask anyone, if you could have a discussion with anyone in history and have something answered and explained for you, my choice would have been and would be even to this very day the conspirators and the trigger man in John Kennedy's assassination on November 22nd, 1963. I would like to be able to sit down with them for an hour or two and say, why? Explain to me why. Because you understand that even through this day, all we have are theories.
Yeah.
All we have is theories. And I have my own theories, which I've formulated over the years, but I absolutely adored John Kennedy. He was a war hero. He was probably the most handsome man I ever laid eyes on. He was a bon vivant of a nature. I thought he was a stalwart of bravery for the common man. I just adored him, and still do to this day. We always laugh. Say, John Kennedy got to sleep with half of Washington D.C. and half of the starlets and Marilyn Monroe and the others that he slept with. And the attorneys will get in conversations and laugh about who we envy in life. And more often than not, somebody will say, well, John Kennedy. And well, why? Because he got to lay Marilyn Monroe and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I truly did adore John Kennedy. I also adored Ernest Hemingway. I adored and do adore. Do you know of the famous world Civil War author Shelby Foote?
Sounds familiar.
Have you ever read it? He's got a big. He wrote the quintessential huge 3-volume history of the American Civil War, named Shelby Foote. He was a Southern gentleman from Mississippi. I admired him greatly. I admired his writing. I admired his style. I admired Frost.
Yeah.
I admired Charles Dickens. I admired William Shakespeare. There's just so many who've had a positive influence. Hell, I admired Vince Lombardi. I don't know about you, how much you knew of Vince Lombardi.
Oh, yeah.
But I admired the hell out of Vince Lombardi.
Yeah.
And I admired my own father. He was a successful educator. He won, his basketball team won 48 games in a row. He was a man that was revered in his time, and the legacy that he left. He's been dead over 35 years, but he left a legacy that was admirable. And I hope when my time comes, and I've had 4 heart attacks and 3 life-threatening infections and 2 near fatal automobile accidents. I had my most recent heart attack on May 3rd. So I like to tell people I've faced the elephant, faced death 8 times. And my office manager and paralegal told me, she said, Mr. Keenan, that's 8 down. All you get's 9.
Like a cow.
I said, okay, her name's Connie. And she said, you better start taking better of yourself. And I do. I take good care of myself, or try to now.
Yeah.
I limit to a very great degree consumption of alcohol. I don't consume much alcohol, and I watch what I eat, and I get rest, and I've had 9 hip replacements, so I'm not capable of. When I got out of the Marines, I used to run 20 miles a week and swim 5 miles a week, but I simply can't do that physically anymore. So I try to do some isometrics and some things that are good for us, but it's I've lived it well.
Yeah,
And
sounds like it.
as you'll notice from my books, if you get them, and I hope you've got them. If you haven't, we can arrange for you to get them. My watchwords are live it well in life. Live it well. Live
Yeah,
it well.
absolutely. So I'm curious, at the end of the day, what are you the proudest of everything that you've done in your life? What are you the proudest of?
I'm awfully proud of my legal career, my trial court accomplishments, my advocacy accomplishments, and now after let's see, I've been writing poetry for 7 or 8 years now. That I'm getting ready to publish my 5th book. I'm as you might imagine, being creative. I started being a poet because I came home from a jury trial that I'd won, and my then special lady friend said, "Jim Bill, you know you've accomplished. You've become the icon. You are the local hero of the legal profession." And she said, "You have so much to be proud of, being the icon that you are." And I said, her name was Deborah. I said, Deb, yes, yes, that's true. I said, but I'm not fulfilled. I'm not fulfilled. I can't sing, I can't dance, I can't play musical instruments, but I'm going to do something cultural so that my legacy will be other than just being an attorney. Because as you know, sir, attorneys come and go.
Yeah.
Attorneys come and go. And there's attorneys that leave a legacy that people honor, but inevitably attorneys fade. But Robert Frost has never faded.
Yeah.
Shakespeare's never faded. So that very night, I started writing poetry, and it instantly took to me. And I enjoyed it, and I don't know if you've seen or been exposed to my books of poetry, but they are entitled "Poetry by a Lawyer," "Poetry from a Lawyer," "Poetry with a Lawyer," and "Poetry near a Lawyer." And my publisher laughed and he said, "Well, Jim Bill, I guess you got the biggest part of the prepositions covered." And I said, "Yeah, I guess so." And he said, "What's the 5th one going to be?" And I thought for a minute. I said, "How's poetry alongside a lawyer sound?" And he laughed. He said, "We'll go with that." But I'm proud of achieving my cultural self-fulfillment. And I think that my legacy, certainly here in southern West Virginia and in all of West Virginia, certainly my legacy as a poet is going to prevail at least the equal to my legal career, if not surmounting it. And that's fine with me. That's fine with me. Because what you say in a courtroom is heard and may make impact. But my friend, what you say in a poetry book lasts and lasts and lasts.
Yeah.
Those words are read, reread, quoted, and I'm just so very proud of my legacy as a poet. After I had published 3, I sat down with my then lady friend and I said, I need to take a year off. She said, honey, you cannot take a year off. She said, in all the years I've known you, all you ever talked about was your law practice and how much you strove to have success in your law practice. She said, but now in the years I've known you since you started writing poetry, that's all you talk about, Jim Bill. She said, you carry that book in your pocket and you make notes all the time. Every time we go out to dinner, you'll make a note or two to remind you of something. And she said, your talent has been awakened. It's been awakened, and you cannot suppress it and should not. And one of my clients was sitting there when she said that, and he said, yes, Mr. Keenan, she's right. What you should do is continue writing. Continue writing. Keep a file. And every time you write one, print it out and put it in the file. And if you ever get enough to do a 4th book, it'll be there. So I did that, and now I've got enough almost. I'm just a couple short of having enough for my 5th book. So
if anyone wants to pick up these books or reach out to you, learn more about you, where's the best place to go?
My books are for sale on Amazon, on Barnes and Noble, Ex Libris, and there's some publisher in the United Kingdom that markets them. But my books are sold in Australia, New Zealand, United Kingdom, Canada, all over the United States.
Excellent.
So the books are not, it's just James Keenan, and the books are not hard to find, and they're very, very reasonable. It's just common man's prose. I mean, I haven't written any like epic. Every single of my 400 or so poems is its own story. So it's common man's prose. The books are as common man's prose. They're easily read. There's no secret parlance or anything in any of my books. It's just straightforward, common man's prose, common language.
I like it.
And I'm proud of that. I'm proud of that also. I'm proud of being a poet. I'm president of the West Virginia Not Yet Dead Poets Society. I'm a member of the American Academy of Poets. My books are in schools. They're in college, libraries. I've donated them to college libraries, to high school libraries, public libraries. Hell, I've given away hundreds of my poetry books, and I don't regret it. It cost me money, but when I go, my brother, I'm going to leave my mark. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are. James, this has been wonderful. Thank you, sir, for opening the door up into your world. And I urge everyone to get out and buy your work. And I'm going to make sure that there's links in the show notes. So thank you, sir. I appreciate your time and story, and best of luck with the next volume.
And thank you, do me honor. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. Our esteemed theme music was composed and produced by the great E.E. Pointer of Kansas City's River Cow Orchestra. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.